I'm 32 years old and my name is Jessica Lang. I've worn a label for as long as I can remember. I never asked for the angry family member, the rebel, or I was the loser who never quite lived up to the standards that everyone else seemed to be able to meet with ease. Claire, her younger sister, is the perfect child, the one who always made everything look easy. She got good grades, had perfect skin, a charming smile, and a way of making people fall in love with her in 10 minutes, or less. Where I was ignored, she was praised, and we're only 2 years apart, but it felt like we were two different people. As kids in Northern, it always seemed like we lived on different sides of the same mirror. From the outside, our family in Connecticut looked perfect. My dad was a business lawyer, and my mom ran a small but successful interior design company. We had the house with the dog and the hydrangeas, but we didn't let anyone see it. Everything was about pictures, and Claire was an expert on pictures. I liked books. When I was coding, I liked to ask too many questions, and by the time I was 15, I had figured out that in our family, you had to be perfect or do well to get attention, and I was too tired to not reel either. I remember giving my parents a photo book for Christmas that I had made by scanning old family photos by hand. Claire gave them to me after I added her own notes, printed, and bound the book. She chose luxury towels with her mom while they were shopping. Can you guess which one made it on? Facebook. But I didn't really dislike her for it, because I loved her. I stood up for her and cheered for her. I just slowly learned to cheer more, quiet from the sides, but I still tried. I went to college, got a degree in computer science, and got a job at a tech company in Boston. I thought that if I made something on my own and was successful without their knowledge, I might be able to get a different kind of respect. Not the loud kind that sticks with you every time. When I got home, it wasn't like any of it had happened. How's work, Claire? Oh, that's great. Mom, they let me design the whole ad. Woohoo. How's work going, Jess? Same place. Nods politely, quickly changes the subject, so when Claire proposed to her high school sweetheart, a finance guy named Ryan with even teeth and morals, the whole family lit. Mom went crazy on Pinterest right away. Dad offered to pay for the wedding, and all of a sudden, every family dinner was about flower arrangements, dress fittings, and bachelorette party plans for a trip. I smiled and said, "Congratulations." I bought her champagne and even helped her create the invitations because she wanted them to have a touch of. Then there was the bridal shower, which was held at our family house and had a donut as a color-coded treat. Wall that made it clear that everyone was there. Family, co-workers, school friends who barely saw each other. When it was time for the bride's toast, Claire stood in the middle of the living room like she didn't know her. It was her crowning day, and she held up her glass with a smile. I just wanted to say, please know how thankful I am to everyone who believed in me and helped me, especially my family. I haven't always been easy. She told me this while giving me a fake laugh. A beat, but hey, at least I'm no longer the family failure. Laughter that can be heard and then clapping. Even my mom clapped during that one sentence and came at me like a hit I didn't see coming. I didn't laugh or cry. I just stood there. I reached into my coat pocket and took out a small satin box. I then went over to Claire and gave it to her. Lap from one disappointment to the next, I said, my voice calm. My heart was beating fast. Thank you, and then I left. I didn't stay to see her open it. I didn't have to, because I already knew what was inside and what would happen as soon as she saw it, but I also knew this. It's not always loud or mean that the best payback is planned and timed. After the bridal shower, I drove right home. My hands were shaking too much to hold the wheel, so I pulled into the I, set my head on the steering wheel, and left the engine off in the first empty church parking lot I found. I stayed there for a long time. My breath was short, and I could hear, laughing over the clap track. I remember my mom's smile and my sister's smug little joke that hit like a slap wrapped in a satin bow. But I remember more than that. When I think about the velvet box, it wasn't just a show. It had purpose, real meaning, which is likely why. It hit so hard. See what Claire knew something that no one else did. The thing inside the box wasn't shiny or brand new. It was just a simple silver key that was worn down. It used to belong to my grandmother's mother, who lived alone in a small yellow house on the edge of Manchester. I went to see her every summer until she died when I was 18. She was the only family member who made me feel good. Seen, not put up with or managed, just seen. She showed me how to braid garlic, keep my budget in order, and listen when someone spoke, but their eyes didn't match. And right before she died, she called me into her room. She was tired, but still, sharp as ever, and gave me a small box. "This is for you," she said. "The house is going away. To your dad. But the key is different, and what's inside is yours." I remember how I looked at the key like it was a prize because I thought it was. After Dad sold the house in less than 3 months because he didn't think it was worth the money to keep up an old place like that. Wasn't even asked. I was 18 and couldn't be seen, so I didn't fight. But what? No. No one knew that I helped her clean out the attic over the summer before she died, and during those quiet, she showed me something every afternoon that she had never shown anyone else. An old wooden trunk with her papers and letters inside. Several old brooches, records from the coffee shop she ran before she got married, along with a brown envelope addressed to Jess. When they make you forget who you are, I didn't open it. I kept it for 12 months. That letter sat in a safe deposit box under my name for years without being opened. Ready, I had no idea what she meant by forgetting until Claire stood in front of that room and broke down. A joke that said everything they had been afraid to say out loud for years. "You are the failure, you've always been the letdown." That's when I knew I had to open the box. And not just me, so I took the envelope out of the safe before the wedding shower. Put it in that velvet ring box Claire used to have. But I didn't open it. In high school during a fight, and I added the key on top, tucked inside the satin. It's the same key. That's what Claire found when she opened the message that her grandma had given her, as if it were holy. History, which she didn't bother to learn a few hours after I put my hands on hers. When I stopped shaking for good, I drove back to my Boston apartment. It was almost midnight when I got there. Since 6:45 p.m., my phone had been ringing nonstop with calls from Mom, Dad, Claire, Ryan, and me. I didn't answer any of them, but I did read them. "Claire, who the hell is this Mom? Jessica, you made your sister look bad in front of everyone. Ryan, call your dad right now. That was messed up and totally wrong. You destroyed her moment with..." Just one text. After 20 minutes, I asked Claire again, "Where did you get that letter she hadn't seen?" Even said there was a letter, but that text message proved she had read it. I knew what was in that letter, even though I hadn't read it. So when I opened the package, the real bomb went off. I knew my grandma never used weak language, so I didn't think those pages was meant to wake up a sleeping giant and maybe even set a few false beliefs on fire. I sat on the edge of my bed and thought about Ground and Claire. She had built her whole identity on lies. I looked at that last message on my phone while writing back. You know who was really upset? I didn't wait for a response. Instead, I reached under my bed and pulled. Because something told me to, I took out an old storage box and started going through the rest of my grandmother's things. This was just the start of how secrets are never really hidden until someone finally gets the nerve to open the box. I thought Claire wasn't the only one who needed to be told of that. When I woke up the next morning, it was 14. Claire tried calling. My mom twice and my dad 5 times, but didn't get through. Only called for big holidays or legal help. Ryan had called 4 times. Had tried again, but I deleted that voicemail before I could hear the whole fake worry in his voice. I didn't feel bad about it. Something old and heavy. The kind of weight that doesn't just appear overnight, but even after decades of playing the part, no one will admit they put you in it. I made coffee, sat in silence, and finally opened the door. I had emails to answer on my notebook, but I couldn't concentrate on code today. I couldn't get rid of the thought that my grandmother had written that letter. What did she say? Where did you get that letter? I knew it had given her a certain kind of shake. Claire didn't like to accept it, but she had always been the type to avoid conflict, turn pain into passive aggression, and laugh it off. Ignore your feelings as a sign of weakness, so for her to send that message, it meant she had read something that changed her story. Around noon, I got a text from a number I didn't know. "Hi, Jessica, this is Aunt Deborah. Your mom gave me your number. Claire is right next to you." I didn't answer her question of, "What did you put in that box?" But I did look through from the box under my bed and taking out everything that used to belong to my grandma. The old birth certificates I saw, torn out newspaper stories, the house, deed, and even a faded menu from the cafe she ran in the 1970s. Then I found it was another letter, but this one wasn't in an envelope. It was folded in half and hidden behind a picture of her standing with a man I didn't know on the back of the picture. In my grandmother's neat handwritten writing were the words, 1968. Arthur, I never told Daniel the truth. Daniel was my father. I was on the fence. Jessica, if you're reading this, you've reached a certain point in the letter. When being unseen is too much to bear, I'm sorry it took you so long to get here. I wish I had been here first. I wish I could help you get through this faster, but if nothing else, let me tell you this. Your father didn't know these things. Facts I didn't tell him because I thought protecting his honor was more important than protecting yours. He wanted a son who would match his ambitions. But instead he got 2 girls, one of whom was me. Later, when he took out all of his worries on you even though he had kids of his own. He never learned how to play the game like Claire did because you were too strong. Deal with girls who wouldn't smile when told to. It's not your fault. It's his fear. I saw a lot of myself in you. The fire, the stubbornness, the strength to stand your ground. I knew they would try to break you one day because you stood strong through the storm. Feelings can be controlled by being quiet, being cold, and making comparisons. It works. It doesn't scream, it whispers, "You're not enough." But you are. Always have been. And if you ever question that again, remember this. Always gets better. In comfort diamonds form under stress rockets fire at gravity. You are not a letdown. You are a date with love, Grandma May. Why? Before I knew it, I was crying, and my coffee was cold. The words didn't just talk about the present. I had been carrying a pain that I had no idea how it had formed until they told me about the past. Then I got it. Claire probably screamed when she read her letter. What was probably inside her envelope something just as personal and to the point, but I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know my grandma yet, but I knew she didn't write mean things and didn't leave. She left guns and mirrors, which may have been the scariest thing for Claire to see, and a part of herself she had avoided for years. Around 4 p.m., Claire sent another message. Why did she write that to me this time? She said maybe because she knew you'd need to hear it one day. An hour went by. I looked at the screen for a while before she replied. I don't know what to do with it. Then wrote back, don't do anything, but don't act like it doesn't exist. Because it wasn't about talent or applause or anything like that for once. Who's the golden one and who's the failure? It was all about the truth. And when the truth stands out like a box, the letter never really fits back into silence. I went to my parents' house without telling them 2 days after the wedding shower, not because I felt guilty or to make peace. Mom opened the door like she was expecting someone else, but when she saw it was me, she slammed it shut, closed her lips in that thin line she always did when she wanted to be nice in front of. She told me, we weren't expecting Jessica as a guest. I know, I cut her off. Kindly, I need to talk to both of you. Dad was in the kitchen nursing a glass of bourbon, like it was medicine. When I walked in, he barely looked up and just pointed to a chair. I told her, Sit down if you're staying. My mom followed behind me, looking tense as I thought I might blow up again like I did at the wedding shower, as if being honest were explosive for a few seconds. No one spoke, and I could hear the fridge humming. The ice in my dad's glass moved, and when I told her, she screamed, because I gave her something real for once, Dad. He slowly looked up at you. I told your sister. No. And she felt bad about herself. I just stopped. He laughed and said, "You've always been so dramatic," which made Mom jump. I could see everything she never said out loud in that tiny move. Years of standing off stage and quietly supporting without getting in the way or protecting. Do you even know what was in the envelope? Obviously he didn't, I asked him, but he didn't answer. They only asked what I was carrying and how it looked. I thought there was something wrong with me for years, I told her. Maybe I was too much or not enough. If I had just tried, if you had worked harder, been nicer, and smiled more, I would have been allowed to count like... You do matter, Claire's mom said too quickly. We've always loved you. I loved the quiet, nice version of myself that didn't make things awkward, I said. Clapped for Claire and told her thank you when she gave her $20 bill birthday presents instead of Dad stood up straighter and said, "We supported you just the same, no you." I corrected Claire, and she got pride. I got respect. The words sat. Between us like... There was smoke in the room and Mom spoke again, but this time it was quieter. I saw the letter from your grandmother, Claire, and turned to her. Voice was shaky. I believe your grandmother saw what we didn't want her to see. You didn't need praise. You just wanted to be seen, and we gave it to you. Kept telling you to drop that sentence. It was the sentence I'd been waiting decades for. Not an apology, but an thanks. Dad got up and refilled his glass at the sink. Your grandma always had a knack for the dramatic. That house was full of old anger, I replied. No, I said, taking his tone into account. So what now? He asked with hard eyes. It was the kind of truth that this family tries to avoid like the plague. If you want to change history, Jess, you need to blame Claire. Your approval? No, I said quietly. I want you to stop acting like everything is fine. When it's not, I want you to know that damage isn't always loud. When you tell someone they're disappointing and expect them to smile anyway, there was quiet. For a moment, none of us moved. Then I heard a voice I hadn't heard in 2 days in the hallway. I told her to give me the box. I knew it was Claire, because she walked into the room in a hoodie and leggings the first time I saw her. Polished in well years, I told her to do something brave. She kept going, but I didn't. I asked her what she was going to bring because I wanted to be seen. You planned this? Her dad asked, making her look like she was crazy. No, Claire said, but I made her say that because I knew she was going to disappear again. I couldn't. Let her go this time, Claire. My breath caught in my chest, looked at me, and the snark was gone. The letter was about how we both felt. Had our parts to play. I was the right person to keep the peace, and you were the mirror we kept trying to look into. When I finally got a chance to nod, she said, "Mirrors. Don't break that easy." The 4 of us stood in that kitchen and didn't yell, hug, or heal. But I was honest, and it was more than I thought it would be because change doesn't always come in the form of fireworks or dramatic scenes. Sometimes it comes in the form of a beautiful child. Admits that the gold was just paint 3 days after the fight in the kitchen. I got a call instead of a real one made of cream-colored cardstock with gold trim that Claire sent it was a new invitation to her second wedding shower, as the note said. This time she wrote, "No show for just the people who need to be there. I want you to be there, and if you want to speak, you can." I read the note 3 times before putting it on my desk. It seemed strange that Claire, the same Claire who used to roll, asked me to talk to her in the shower. Her eyes when I told her grammar was wrong, or when I asked too many serious dinner questions, the same Claire who told her friends I was just shy when I hid behind a book at family moments parties that Claire was changing. But healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It takes time. With just one box and one encounter, it grows slowly over time. Truths? So I didn't say yes right away. Instead, I went outside and watched the early in the evening. I saw the lights of Boston flash, and I thought about what I would say if I went to get payback. Payback, but truthful payback that was earned. The next day, I called my Mrs. Alley used to live next door to my grandmother. She was almost 90 years old, but still lived. Grandma May used to live in a yellow house across the street from the house that Dad sold like it was useless, Mrs. Alley. Jessica Lang picked up on the third ring and said, "Your voice is clear. You sound just the way your grandma talked about. The house in the summer, I remember that almost made me cry. She told you that you were the quiet one who helped clean out the attic. But don't be shy. Everyone has a... What made the difference was that I told her about the letter, the box, and the impact. Only old people can do that. And when I was done, she just stood there and said, 'That house may be gone, but the stories inside it live on.' It sounds like your grandmother trusted you to tell these tales." The first time, I didn't feel like a letdown. I felt like a guide. A few days later, I showed up, her new bride, Claire. The shower wasn't at our parents' house. It was at a cozy cafe on the edge of town. The lighting was warm, and the chairs didn't match, but that made it feel real. There were about a dozen people. No long-lost cousins or co-workers who only came for the wine this time. Instagram backgrounds only showed important people. Claire wore a light blue dress. She looked like she didn't have much on, like a flower crown or a perfectly practiced smile. I had not seen her like this since we were teenagers when she met. Me at the door, with a long, quiet hug. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said in a whisper. I answered, "But I'm glad I did in the middle of the afternoon after mimosas were being drunk and the cake was being cut." Claire stood up. "I know we did. I know some of you heard things at the... There were a few nervous laughs." Then she said, "But I want to take a moment to explain. Take note of something or someone," she said. She looked right at me, my sister. "Jessica said there have been many things in this family, helper, fixer, defender, and I let her handle all the hard tasks for years while I did the simple ones. But not this year." She stopped and asked, "Jessie, would you mind saying a few more words?" The room turned to face me, and I felt that old weight rise for a moment. "Don't stand out, don't make it weird," the voice in my head said again. "Don't talk too loudly." But I stood up and walked to the middle of the room and cleared my throat. "Thank you," I said, "for giving me a space I never had before. I didn't expect to have a microphone or stage because I need them, but because I thought I didn't belong in places like these family rooms for a long time. The truth is that I wasn't the failure. I was just different. And being different isn't a flaw." I looked at Claire, who was watching me without blinking. We all have roles to play. Some we choose, some we inherit, but in the end, we can choose to keep playing them, and I've chosen to stop. I didn't cry or shake, I just stopped, was calm and clear, as if they had finally given up asking for after the speech. Permission to be seen. Something changed in the air, not dramatic, but there wasn't a standing ovation, or cheers, or gasps, or tears. It was quieter than that. A stillness. Like when something heavy finally hits, and everyone realizes they've been hanging on for dear life. Claire was the first to stand up. She didn't say anything. She just walked over. This time he hugged me longer and didn't talk or practice. Feeling of arms wrapped around arms real. Then one of her friends began. First one person clapped, then another, and soon the whole room was filled with slow, honest praise. Not to put on a show, but to let go and grow for the guts to say, "I'm not who you thought I was." And that's okay. That night, after the guests left, the lights in the cafe were turned down, and Claire and I stayed behind to help clean up. She insisted on wiping tables while I did other things. Stacked used plates, it seemed strange that we were doing something together. Normal, without the parts we had both learned to play, she gave me a wet towel. Do you want to know what was in my envelope? Cloth? I stopped for a moment. Tell me she leaned against the counter and it was an old letter copy, Grandma. Her brows rose when she wrote my dad a letter that she never sent. Dad, she said. Yes. And she wrote it the day I was born. It sounds like she heard him. He was glad that the second child was healthy so that I wouldn't be as hard to deal with this time. I felt sick to my stomach because I didn't know he said that. Neither did I, but Grandma did. He retaliated by saying, "Any man who confuses silence for goodness is raising sheep, not children." I let out a scream. It sounds like her quiet, sour laugh. Claire shrugged, and she wrote something else as well. One day, the tough one would be the only one in the family who was brave enough to tell the truth. It would either make me hate it or respect it. And which did you choose? I asked. The most honest answer I've ever heard was when she looked me in the eyes. I heard her give as we left the coffee shop. She gave me a small envelope, which was also in the box she wrote, and I think she meant it for both of us. I didn't say anything until I got home. To open it, there was only one picture inside, its edges twisted and faded. It showed Grandma May cuddling two babies, Claire and laughing. She threw her head back and her hair was all over the place. "Let the world call you," was written in blue pen on the back in sunlight. Hard means you didn't bend, so stand up straight. I put the picture in my tucked behind a frame of my college graduation picture. No one in my family went to that one, not because they were mean, but because they didn't want to. A reminder that healing doesn't mean rewriting past. It means seeing it in a new way, and I had Claire's wedding happened 4 weeks after everything else. It wasn't perfect. While we were having dinner, there were uncomfortable silences and tension between my dad and me that never quite went away. Mom stayed mostly neutral, walking a fine line between keeping the peace and being a guest. But Claire, she was different. Her promises were honest, and her thanks was genuine. At the gathering, she raised a glass and said, "To my sister who showed, it's okay to break some traditions. I didn't cry, I just nodded." That moment wasn't about being happy or forgiven. It was about being understood. And for someone she spent her whole life trying to change the minds of people who already thought she was. Several weeks later, I was asked to talk on a show in Boston about women in tech. The host asked me about failure, imposter syndrome, and telling the truth helped me feel good about myself. Strong confidence isn't the absence of doubt, I said. It's the refusal to let other people's versions of you win. Where did you learn that? She asked. A velvet box, a key? I smiled. And a letter from a woman who saw me before anyone else did. From the one who didn't stay quiet, was disappointed, I said. So if you're still watching and still not sure what was in that box, this might be your sign to stop getting smaller, to stop saying sorry for not fitting their mold, because telling the truth is sometimes the best gift you can give. Velvet brought to you with style and left with your head held high.